Welcome to this video. Today, I want to talk to you about the configuration tab in OpenVas Community Edition. So here it is. In the past, we covered the scan, we covered a dashboard, we covered administration, seg info, assets, and resilience. I don't know if I'm going to cover this because I'm using Community Edition, and a lot of it has to do with the commercial version of it. So that being said, let me click on the configuration tab to see the different options that we have. So once you do it, you see target, port list, credentials, scan configs, alerts, schedules, report format, scanners, filters, and tags. And let's go over the different options and how by you doing the configuration here, you're going to be able to use that configuration in other sections of the scanner. So let me open two tabs. I'm going to come here to my scan, actually, not dashboard. And I'm going to have this. So the first thing that I want to talk to you, instead of talking about target, let's talk about target for now. I was going to leave it for second option. But targets, as you can imagine, the targets are the targets that you want to run the scan on, right? And there are different ways the targets are created. One of the ways is that when you run these scans, like these scans that you have right here in your tasks, let me show you here, right? Whatever scan you want to run, and that target that you have, that you specify, that's gonna populate the target section in here. Or you can create your targets right here. Let me go back. And then you could use a target there. As you could see, these targets that I have here were automatically added to the target list when I ran the scan. And these targets that don't have these long names are the targets that I created manually. And you could do it by clicking on the new target icon, name the target right here, whatever name you want to do it, whatever comment you want to add. And here is where you specify the target's host name or IP address. Let's say that I want to do it on www.bbc.com. You can do that. You're going to be scanning www for the BBC domain, bbc.com. Or you can also use a list if you have a list of target. Now, this is super useful if you have a series of different targets from different subnets, and then you want to, instead of typing the targets here manually with commas, you can just select the list. Or maybe this is something that you are importing from another location or another site, and you want to, and as long as you keep the same IP subnet, of course, or you could do the DNS name, you could import that. I just wanted to show you the option. And exclude means exactly what it means. When you're scanning, this is especially applicable when you're scanning a segment, right? Or a segment or a range, 172.16.5, like 0/24, for instance. Even though you're not going to be able to scan all those hosts at once, but there is one or a number of hosts within that subnet that you wouldn't like to scan. You want to exclude them. This is how you would exclude them. You can either type the IP address here, or you can again import from the list. Something to keep in mind, and I've seen a lot of people doing that actually, and I guess that is fine, but it's not a best practice. When you run a scan, make sure you exclude the scanner from the scan. Sometimes if you have one subnet, a flat network, and you want to scan the entire subnet and the scanner is part of the subnet, then you're going to create a lot of traffic and it's going to be a nonsense. So just make sure that you exclude the scan from the list, or if there is any host that should not be scanned at that specific time, make sure you exclude that, or that you create scheduled for this scanner to run at a different time. I've seen many times when network administrators and sadly security engineers, they create their own denial of service because they run the scan on systems that are not designed to handle that amount of traffic at one specific time. So when you come down here, you also have the option of allowing, let me just highlight this because this is important right here. Maybe not for most of us, but it's important to know. So by default, the option is to allow simultaneous scan via multiple IP addresses. There are some target old devices and IoT devices that don't like that because they don't have the resources. So in that case, you would say no, right? But unless you have a very specific reason to say no, leave it as default. The port list, right? And this is what ports are going to be scanned during this process. As a matter of fact, let me retrace that because we're not talking about scannings. What ports is this target that I'm creating going to have set for scanning? That's a much better way of saying that. And as you could see, you have the option of AINA assign TCP. If you wonder what that is, let me cancel this for now and go to configuration and port list. And this is what it is. By default, we have all AINA assigned TCP, which is a total of 5,836 ports and 0 UDP ports. Or you have the option of using all AINA assigned TCP and UDP, which is a total of 11,000, which is 5,000 TCP and 5,000 and change, of course, UDP. Or you could be a brave one and do all ports, which is all 65,000 TCPs or an all 100 UDP. Now, if you do this, you can imagine that the scanner is going to take forever, and you need to have a very specific reason to do this. Because most applications are not going to be working on those what we call random ports, right? So they're going to be working on well-known ports or custom ports or these ports from AINA, the assigned ports. It's very unlikely that you're going to have a sort of a running on random ports. Like those around 49,000 and all those ports out there. But it's an option. So if I go back, let me go back to targets here for 1 second and I leave those two windows open. So if I create my target, let me come here and do this one more time. I'm name 2, whatever. So when you come to the port list, you have the option of selecting that from here. It may be that maybe you want to run a scan on a handful of specific ports. Let's say, 33, 89, 21, 22, 23, 25, right? Like those ports, like 80 that are well-known ports and an application use them. You can create a port list for that. And then this is very, very important too, because I had this problem at one point. The default alive test configuration is scan config default. Now, what this means is that when you are going to start the scanner, how is OpenVas going to determine whether that host is up, meaning running, or not? And these are the different ways that it can be done. It can send an ICP ping first, right? Or it could do a TCP AG, or it could do an RPIM. Sometimes when you run a scan, let me come here for 1 second. Let me open up a new tab for this. Sometimes when you run a scan on, especially it happens for public host outside your network, you create a scan and you type in the correct target address or host name. The scan may fail and it's going to say 0% complete and it's going to hang in there. Nothing is going to happen. In that case, if you ever come across that situation, you have to change how that target that you are working with. And let me go back to it. It went away. Let me use this as an example. Not this. Let me come here. How that target is being detected as alive. If it shows like 0% and it didn't detect anything, you can come over here and change the option to consider alive. So even if the target does not reply to any of these uh, to these alive test settings, it is going to be considered alive and the probes are going to continue. Then when we come here, we have the option of entering credentials. If you want to run authenticated scans, you can add those to the host, right? If you are creating, for instance, if this were a Ubuntu box and you're running you're running SSH there, or if you have Windows and you're running SMB, or even if you have VMware ESXi and you want to run the scan with credentials, this is where you will enter them. Of course, you can like add them from here, create them, right? Like these are my credentials. Or you can also come here to the other section of the configuration and credentials, and you could do it right from here too. So something to keep in mind is that whatever settings you're going to have on that specific scan that you are on that specific target, I'm sorry, that you are creating, these are the settings that are going to be used when you run the scan on that host. So this is how it connects. Now you see that, right? So let me come here and let me do that one more time, because like sometimes it's hard for people to understand the the concept. So let me come here. When you select the scan, the host from here, the target that you want to scan, whatever settings you had here is what's going to how the scanner is going to react to those settings. So if you want to scan all AINA assigned TCP, you could do it. Or if you want to do the a customized version of your ports, you could do it from there too. And that's what I wanted to show. Just keep that in mind. So let's see what the next option is. We cover target, port list, credentials, scan configs. So from here we have the scan configs options. And if I were you, I wouldn't mess with this unless you have a specific reason to do that, right? As you could see, when we run a scan, let me come back here one more time. Tasks wizard. When you let's select any target, for instance, right? The alert schedule. We're gonna do this now. The scanner is gonna be default. The scan configs right here. So you can change when you run a scan. Do you ever wonder what is it that the scanner is checking and is looking into? So this is the option right here. For instance, the default scanned is the full and fast, most MVTs optimized, as you could see right here. And you cannot delete it because this is the default scan, but you can copy it or clone it in this case and edit it, right? But if you were to edit this, let me clone it first so I can edit it. All right, so I see full clone, so now I'm gonna be able to edit this. And you're gonna see what is it specifically that the scanner is doing based on the MVTs, right? As you could see, it is using for all these different families. It is gonna show you what how many MVTs are selected of this. And if you are curious about this, you can even come in here. And for instance, for FTP, it's using 175 or 175. But if you can click here, you can edit or select the MVTs that's being looking into, right? You can select them and remove them. Now, why would you make changes to it? Because you may have a specific reasons for that, right? I mean, that's the answer in reality. I rather have everything, even if I don't need it to run the scan, than having removing things and then missing out on something. But what I wanted to show you is that you can even come here, right? If you want to come to the actions, and you can even go deeper into the configuration of what you're doing if you want to change the timeout when you're doing this scan. So it gets deeper. This is not something that you would do just because. This is something that you would do for a specific reasons. And in that case, most likely this is very useful when you have the commercial version of the scan. And sometimes these, scans don't work, and they may tell you to go into these settings and make the changes. Right? I have one of my scans that I created. Let me see. Oh, look, if you do host discovery, for instance, let me just edit this so you'll see something very interesting in here. Most of the vulnerability scanners, they do rely on Nmap, right? And that's what it is. So for host discovery, out of all these families, it is only using one family, right? Port scanners, I believe one or two, and settings. So if you go to port scanning, as you could see, it's using one MVT of 9. And if you click here, it is going to show you the uh, the MVTs that it's using. And as you could see here, it's using a ping host information. And if you click on it, it is going to show you that it's just an nmap command that is running. And these are the ports that it is checking. So again, it is a very deep configurations changes that you would make if you want to do that. But hey, you have the option right here. You may have a reason to do such a thing. And lastly, I just want to finish with this configuration menu. We have alerts. You can create alerts based on events. Depending on the events, you can email the alerts or vulnerabilities discover, and you can email or send the alerts either by email. You can send it to a host by SMB, SNMP, so on and so forth. So at one point, I don't have time for this right now, but at one point, I am going to show you how to configure the email option of it. As you can imagine, this is community edition. We're running this on a Docker. Nothing is configured other than the Docker. So if you want to receive stuff by email, you have to do some configuration on your host to be able to send emails, the alerts. And then if we come down here to schedules, we talked about this in the past. You can schedule tasks from here, right? And you can show how often that's going to happen. Let me go back to my scan for 1 second, because in a different video, I showed you that when you create your scans, you have the option of creating a schedule, right? So as you could see, I added the schedule to the scan, and to any of these scans right here, if you modify them, right, you can also add the whatever schedule you added before, right? So you can say yes, and that's going to be added to it. So that's what the schedule is going to do for you. And then the report format is how you want the reports to be created. These are the default options, nothing to talk about right here. And then, oh, we have two more options, scanners. So the default scanners, there's nothing to talk about here. This is what OpenVas Community Edition comes with. You have the option of CVEs, and you have the option of OpenVAS default. That said, I believe that if you have the commercial version, you may have another option. For that, there's nothing for you to configure here, like unlike the other options. And filters, that is if you want to create filters. You could do that in here. Create the filters if you know the syntax. I'm not that good with the syntax. I believe that I showed you this in another video, but if you go, for instance, to any of the graphs right here, it'll show you how to, when you select something, it'll create a filter for you, right? For instance, if you want to see the operating system with severity class, right? So you can click that here. You have to do it in here. Let me go to another chart. Okay, this one by MVTs. Oh, it doesn't do that from here. Interesting. So let me come When sometimes when you click on one of these charts, it filters that information for you and it automatically creates the filters, and that's what I'm trying to show you. So let me see. Okay, no. Okay, hold on a second. Let me find that. Okay, I found it. So what I wanted to show you is this. If you go to, let me go to, just cancel this. For instance, let me go to vulnerabilities right here. As you could see, I have the vulnerability charts in here, and you have the option of typing in a filter if you know the syntax, right? But if you select options from the charts, let's say that you would like to see vulnerabilities by severity class, as you could see, it is listing 21. And you would like to see what they are, you would click on them, and that's going to show you all the vulnerabilities that are 6.9 and above. But what I wanted to show you is this: it automatically creates a filter for you. So you can copy this and you can go to filters and you can create your own filters right from here, right? On vulnerability. So that's how you could do that if you want to create the filters for that. And I believe this is it. Tags, you can create tags and assign them to your host if you want that. I mean, it's a simple thing. I usually don't bother creating this, but that is an option for you. And again, in this video, we cover the configuration tab for OpenVast. I was trying to make this video just 10 minutes long or 15 minutes at the most, but as you see, there was a lot to cover. So I hope that if you didn't listen to the whole video, that you found the information you were looking for. We cover targets, port lists, credentials, scan configs, alert schedules, and reports. And out of this, the targets and port lists are the ones that you're going to be using the most. And credentials is up to you if you want to run something like that. Again, I hope you found this information useful, that you click on the like button on this video and subscribe to my channel, and I will talk to you on the next video. Bye.